It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Breakfast, talking property from Darwin to Hobart. And you can stream us too on multiple platforms, including iHeartRadio, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Well, don't forget, you can now leave a voice message below. It can be about your struggling real estate journey or perhaps something that is bugging you, like perhaps the cost of coffee. We have now reached a point where having $4 in your pocket is only halfway to a price of coffee in some joints around Australia. Yeah, I mean, I got charged the other day exactly that, $8 for a large coffee. Is that crazy? I mean, I'm a reasonable person, but forget paying $8 for a coffee. $8 towards eggs and bacon, yeah, I can do that. But the cost of living, it's a thing. There's no running away from it. And what if you say in the office today or the work site, hey, my shout for a round of coffees? I mean, forget that. It ain't happening, is it? And if you have a coffee story that you'd like to leave a voice message, do it. Send us a voice message today and we'll share your message tomorrow. Well, it's a Wednesday morning. It is August the 20th. And we're going to catch up with Roger Wilkins from the University of Melbourne. And good morning to you, Roger. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning. How much do you pay for your coffee, by the way?
I do all mine at home or at work. So I'm fortunate that we have a coffee machine here at work. So yeah, I'm pretty staggered to hear that it's $8 for a coffee. That's getting ridiculous.
You know, it used to be a thing when people were saying, well, saving up for a house deposit, you've got to say goodbye to your coffees, you know, your smashed avocado. But that's kind of taking it to a whole new level. I'm not sure how many people can afford to actually pay that day in, day out. You know, some people have 2 coffees, 3 coffees. They're paying that. Gee, that's a lot.
Yeah, well, it's becoming more and more true, that statement. I guess we used to think it was a bit ridiculous to say you could get a house deposit together by avoiding coffee, but it's not sounding so ridiculous if it's $8 a coffee.
Exactly. That is my point. So, yes, if you're feeling it, do leave that voice message for us this morning. Australia's tax system gives owner-occupiers a rare privilege, and this is living in their homes rent-free while avoiding taxation on that benefit. And economists are arguing that this untaxed income from imputed rent creates inequality as renters and landlords face far stricter tax obligations. Now, I want you to tell us a little bit about this study that you have done, this report out. Maybe first off, just explain to people what imputed rent is exactly.
Yes, imputed rent is a rather abstract concept because there's no actual flow of money. But what it refers to is if you own your own home, you get housing services from that. You know, your house accommodates you. And what imputed rent is it's the value of those services. It's like if I was to rent that house instead of own it, how much would I have to pay in rent for that?
Yeah, and I can see how people might get a little bit confused with this because it is an abstract concept that you are talking about, because imputed is estimated, but it is a real benefit that people receive, and that is the premise of buying a home in the first place, is to get, as you say, those housing services that you're talking about if you live in it, and of course, as well as that, the investment from buying it in the first place.
But as I said, it is very real. So it's in our national accounts. So, you know, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, when it produces the quarterly GDP figures and so forth, imputed rent is in there as part of our incomes. So it certainly has legitimacy. It's not something that me and my co-author Peter Szyminski have just sort of made up. It's a very, real phenomenon. And it is actually taxed in some other countries. I think Denmark's one. And in fact, in 1915 and 1916, for a little while there, even in Australia, we taxed it for a little while. Hard to believe they could do it over 100 years ago, but there you go, they did it. We were sort of saying, well, we weren't so much coming from a position of, we need to go after homeowners. It was more just, we know that there's, the home's an important source of economic wellbeing. So what if we looked at the income that people effectively get from their home?
Yeah, okay, so let's have a look at the capital gains, because owner-occupiers not only benefit from untaxed imputed rent that you're talking about, but also enjoy tax-free capital gains when selling their primary residence. The argument is that this double advantage accelerates wealth for homeowners while renters miss out altogether, widening Australia's property-driven income divide. You can't really argue with that too much.
No, I mean, and it is a source of inequity in the tax system. If you tax one form of income and not another form of income, which, obviously capital gains, is very clearly that, then you're advantaging one group over another, arguably inequitably.
Now, a lot of people will be reacting with a lot of alarm and trepidation to what you're talking about when you talk of taxing the family home, and another word might be people feeling hostility to the very suggestion of another tax on their home.
And one of the reasons people don't like it is because they think it's just a tax grab and it just means we're all paying more tax. But what we're really talking about here is making the system a bit more equitable and decreasing some other taxes. And, obviously we have income taxes, which are really high in Australia compared to, we rely a lot more on income taxes in Australia than most other countries. And also stamp duty. And I think that's a really inefficient tax. That has real economic costs. We're talking about productivity this week at the Economic Roundtable. Stamp duty should really be a priority for getting rid of that. It's really having adverse impacts on the Australian economy.
We are talking to Roger Wilkins from the University of Melbourne this morning. Taxing the family home, do I have your attention? Imputed rent. I think we're all learning something new this morning, and we'll have more from Roger after this.
Listen to in-depth discussions with industry leaders on investing options, understanding different suburbs with insider perspectives and exclusive tips.
Not that long ago, we were talking about container homes, shipping homes, these 40-foot containers being turned into little small tiny homes. And Simon, I know that we have spoken in the past about doing things at scale, massive factories being built around Australia. This is a really smart approach, of course, speeding up just how many homes that you can deliver. But I'd be interested in your thoughts on container homes, because this is starting to catch fire somewhat.
Exactly. It targets a very specific niche. It's the idea I have a bit of room on my property. I want to plonk in another spare bedroom with a little kitchenette and a bathroom. Traditional granny flat approach. Maybe you want to do this to keep the teenagers, outside of the main house so that they can be a bit more rowdy and louder. It is a wonderful, quick way of establishing housing. You pour a bit of concrete, you plonk this thing on top. This is a super quick way of adding bedrooms, of adding dwellings to the housing stock. I'm in massive support. We do not have enough diversity in the housing market, and this fills exactly this particular need.
Now, he's in Melbourne, and what I actually found really interesting about our conversation is that you can use it as a primary dwelling home. And that really surprised me, but he said, yeah, no problems at all. We're doing it all the time. One of the ideas that I really liked was he gets these requests to build two 40-foot containers rather than joining them together, because as you can imagine, you've got all of the steel and the welding that's got to take place. He just builds this deck between the two and roofs it, and you've got this really nice area between two 40-foot containers.
Absolutely. And this is a wonderful housing solution. Again, it fills a niche. It is not that we will all live in those container homes, but it is, in many instances, this might just be the solution because you offer housing fast. It is a bit niche, but that's fine. And particularly if you are someone who has a bit of land to spare, that might be an option. If you look look about these standard properties, the infill sites that we have. Is this the right solution? Probably not. These sites are too specific. If you look at the greenfield development market, this is probably not it, because you have big building companies building their product on top. But for many niches where land is privately owned and there is enough space available, just this quick housing solution is exactly what people are after.
Remember, we are not a real estate company. We are 100% all about increasing your awareness and knowledge for buying and selling properties.
And it's a Real Estate Wednesday. We are talking imputed rent, etc. And Roger is with us. And this is the bigger picture stuff. Looking at fairness in taxation, economists are stressing that they're not calling for an immediate imputed rent tax, but urging recognition of how these hidden benefits distort fairness by treating housing differently. And Roger, let's just look at the global housing tax approaches, because OECD countries tax housing in three distinctive main ways. First is the purchase, second is the ownership, and the third is the sale. You mentioned that some like Denmark and Switzerland even tax imputed rent. This is where the really grey area is. Australia doesn't have this tax on imputed rent, which some say reinforces a homeowner's welfare state and deepens the wealth gap.
Yes. Now, of course, we tend to think of those Scandinavian countries as prone to taxing everything. So people might sort of take too much from that fact, but it does show that it is viable to do. I mean, personally, I'm more for moving towards something that might gets badged as a property tax or a land tax, that sort of thing, which effectively is what imputed rent taxes end up being. And I think that's easier to understand. And it's also, we have had some moves in that direction in Australia with the ACT in particular, moving away from stamp duty towards annual land taxes. And I think that's probably the more viable way in terms of people understanding it. And also, I think it's still politically really difficult, but I think it's got probably more potential than trying to tax something that people don't even understand necessarily what you're talking about when you use the term imputed rent.
Yeah, and I think it's great that we're actually having the conversation and just bringing people up to speed, because I can guarantee you there will be more people than not that will have no idea what that was, imputed rent. So, Roger, thank you so much for spending the time to explain that. I'll let you go and grab that coffee this morning. Hopefully it's not too expensive.
Yes. Well, I'll get the free one. Yes. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Each week, we bring you in-depth real estate discussions, including inspiring stories from homeowners, knowledgeable real estate professionals and economists. Whether you're a buyer, seller, or just a real estate enthusiast, we are your ultimate property podcast.
But I have noticed a lot of my buyers at the moment just trying to get the better deals they can get from different banks. So it's definitely something occurring for the last week or so.
As I mentioned, you are in St Mary's. I love this because we have never featured St Mary's because there's so many of these suburbs right across Australia. Give us a breakdown and tell us a little bit about the demo, etc. on St Mary's.
Yeah, so St Mary's at the moment is a booming suburb for Western Sydney, more just due to affordability. Most of the people buying in St Mary's are young families or young couples hoping to enter the market and buy the first property. Medium house prices in St Mary's are around $1 million. Units are around 450,000, but townhouses at the moment, which is the hot stock, around 800,000.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.